Hello, I'm Dr. Tiffany Tyler Garner, and I have the privilege of serving as the Children Advocacy Alliance's Executive Director. Our mission is to bring our time, talent, and resources to improving conditions for Nevada's children in the areas of education, safety, economic well-being, and health. We are committed to being the independent voice for Nevada's children and families. With each podcast, we will look at ways our community can work together to answer a critical call to action, to provide our children with all the resources they need to make a strong start in life. Today, we'll be addressing a concerning but important issue: the commercial sexual exploitation of children in Nevada. We are joined by CAA's Dr. Tara Raines, Brigid Duffy, Director of Juvenile Division of the Office of Clark County District Attorney, Brittany Hopballe from Signs of Hope, and Makaay Swain from the Embracing Project.
Hi, I'm Tara Raines, and I'm joined today by Brigid Duffy, who is the Chief Deputy District Attorney for Clark County Juvenile Division. I have Makaay Swain from the Embracing Project, and I have Brittany Hopballe from Project Rise.
The Rise program.
The Rise program. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we are here to discuss commercial sexual exploitation of children. So as a brief trigger warning, there may be some content that we talk about today that is sensitive or may make folks uncomfortable. We want to make it clear that we're having this conversation because it's very important that we discuss as a community ways in which we can support these youth. So as we get started, do you mind just, Brittany, starting us off by talking a little bit about what your program does and the work that you do?
Of course. So the RISE program is out of the Signs of Hope agency, and we work to address sexual violence advocacy here in Southern Nevada. So RISE specifically works with human trafficking victims. That can be labor trafficking, sex trafficking, children, adults, any gender, any nationality, or immigration status as well. So we kind of have our hands full working all of that. We do, the bulk of what we do is that intensive case management. So working with individuals when they want to kind of get back on their feet and kind of leave the exploitation that they have experienced. But we also offer 24-hour response. So we work with the Embracing Project to respond to professionals when they've identified a human trafficking victim here in Southern Nevada. We'll actually go out in person and help that individual work through some of their most immediate needs and help kind of get them set for a little bit until they can meet with a case manager. We also offer training and education, and we do outreach as well.
Okay, thank you so much. And Kai, can you tell us a little bit about the Embracing Project?
So we have a couple of different services we offer because I think the state of Nevada at the moment is shifting towards more of a prevention model. So our program actually does both sides. We have our intervention program for sexually exploited youth. We do say sexually exploited because we do have a lot of kids who come to the program who engage in survival sex. So we want to not leave them out. So we have our sexually exploited youth program for youth 12 to 21. And then we have our prevention program, which is services for female identifying youth who have just started getting in trouble, getting system involved, having difficulties at home. So we put them in either group mentoring or individual mentoring in the hopes to kind of steer them in a little bit of a different direction and in the hopes that they don't make it over to the sexually exploited youth program. So we have a number of different services that we focus on. Counseling, whether that's group, individual, or family. We do a lot of behavioral health services, so working with them on those psychosocial needs that they have, which, as we know, the consequences of the trauma that they face does leave them with a lot of emotional scars and things that they need to work through to have a fulfilling adult life and move to the next stage that they're in. We also have a small shelter program for 6 youth. So it's a home in the community where up to 6 youth and infants, if they have children, they can stay there, access services. We get them on the housing list to find more permanent housing. So we are manned or ladied, I guess, by advocates who meet with the kids one-on-one. Just a lot of support through different stages. There's no maximum term of service for us. We try for a minimum of 3 months, but there is no maximum. So we have some kids who have been in services for years because as different stages come up, different things come up. So we want to make sure that we're that constant adult in their lives. So.
Absolutely. And Brigid, I'm going to talk with you in a second. I want you to tell us about how your office is involved. But before we go there, I want to clear up some definitions so that we can all be on the same page. Can you provide explain human trafficking to me? And then I want to go to you to talk a little bit about survival sex. So what is human trafficking? Like, what would be a good definition?
Sure. When we're looking at human trafficking, there's actually a federal definition which doesn't really apply to daily life, but we're always looking for that force, the fraud, or the coercion involved in either commercial sex or forced labor. So it can look very different ways depending on the individual. But again, we're looking for where people are exploited using the force, the fraud, the coercion, and those certain types of, I guess, work, if you want to call it that, and working with them through there. So I guess that would be the technical term. I don't know.
Okay, so force, fraud, and coercion are what we're looking for when we're trying to identify if someone is being trafficked.
Yes.
Okay. And then talk to me about survival sex. What does that really mean?
I mean, because our focus is kids. So when you're a kid, and I say kid, but they're like big, medium, and, small. So they're teens.
Youth.
When you're 15, 16, if you are not living at home, whether that's because you've left or your parents have kicked you out, you have very limited resources. So when kids, one of the things that they're left to trade, unfortunately, is what they've got, which is their body. So if they engage in any kind of sexual activity with someone for a place to stay, food, transportation, some of the kids we work with have substance abuse issues. They might trade sex for drugs. That's what we classify as survival sex. So it's still exploitive. I mean, this is a kid who has limited options, so that is their only choice.
That coercion, right?
Absolutely. When you don't have anything, I mean, I think that's when you get into that choice thing. When people say, oh, it's a choice, it's like when you have to choose between crap or crapper, what are you going to choose? So they engage in sex with people to get their basic necessities provided. Necessities that we as adults should be providing for them, but they don't have those people.
And I guess that's the interesting piece about human trafficking with kids is we don't have to identify the force, the fraud, or the coercion when it comes to commercial sex for children, but we still do have to identify the force, fraud, coercion when it comes to labor trafficking of children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the tricky caveat that we have to work with.
So, Brigid, how do they end up in your office? How is your office involved in this work?
So I have two avenues. So in my office, I oversee deputy DAs who practice either in the delinquency field or in the child welfare field, which would be children that are involved in the foster care system through an allegation of abuse or neglect by a parent or guardian. So both of those avenues are ways that we would end up with children that are being sexually exploited. So foster children, for example, are one of the highest rates of children that become sex trafficking victims because they lack a parental figure, a caring adult, somebody to take care of them. And then the other way is through law enforcement identification. And that would be an arrest by a police officer where that child victim is taken to a juvenile detention center currently. And then they run through my delinquency portion.
And what are these kids getting arrested for typically?
So they can be arrested currently for anything from solicitation, which is, the actual solicitation of prostitution, or it could be minor in a gaming establishment, trespassing, curfew, lying to a police officer, which we call obstruction.
Okay.
So there's a whole list of things that may just be lying to a police officer that we later realize is a victim of sex trafficking.
So are the officers trained to, and I don't know if this is in your office that does this, but are they trained to ask specific questions to try to get at whether or not the youth is in danger of being trafficked? Or?
They are. They do go through different trainings to be able to identify children that are at risk or who are being trafficked. And then they can, if there's not even an arrestable offense, they can call out to one of my friends, the advocates, to come out to the scene and assist.
So you all will actually go out and meet with the police officers while they're interviewing or giving a citation, or what does that look like?
So there's kind of, again, two different avenues. So one of them is that we have an Embracing Project advocate and a RISE advocate that are out overnight from like 9 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And they're having contact with anyone that is identified as being, again, at risk or engaging in commercial sex. And a lot of times those are the youth that are coming through. So sometimes right at the scene, as soon as that kid is being identified, there's an advocate there. On the off chance that they're not there, we do have a call-out procedure. So as soon as law enforcement identifies, hey, this kid is at risk or they are being trafficked currently, then they'll call an advocate out, and that advocate will respond wherever it's safe, where law enforcement has kind of made sure the scene is safe, and they'll come out and just talk through, again, what those kiddos need. It could be just kind of emotional support, talking through what they're going through currently, but it could be they need shelter or they need immediate medical care or something that they may not feel comfortable talking about right away with law enforcement.
And let me tell you, what they do, and I've learned this in the past week or so. I mean, what these advocates are putting themselves through when they go out there, when Brittany talks about safety, like oftentimes while police are interacting with child victims, their traffickers are nearby watching the scene. And which means when these advocates are showing up at the scene, they're being targeted. Potentially at times. So it's really a difficult dynamic to make sure everybody at the scene is safe, but they're willing to go out there at all hours of the night for these kids.
This is incredible work. Is this a local program, or is this statewide? Is this national? Like, how are your programs situated?
This is local for all of Clark County, which obviously is a lot of Las Vegas Valley. There have been times that I've been called out to not Pahrump. I've been called out to Laughlin, and I'm making my way out there. But we do respond just about within 30 minutes anywhere in Las Vegas. So very local.
Okay. And it's similar with your...
Yeah, so our program here, so we're a Rite of Passage program. So Rite of Passage is our parent program. Rite of Passage themselves is a nationwide program. So there's, it's going to be recorded too, like 30-ish programs. Like across, I should probably know that number. There's like 30-ish programs across the country that address different needs. So there's a limited amount of CSEC or sexually exploited youth programs, but they cover a variety of kids who are justice involved in the system and things like that. But the Embracing Project, similar to RISE, we are in Las Vegas in Clark County, but we also have kids now with technology. We've had kids who move out of state, and we switch to virtual because, again, identifying support people is so difficult when you're young and you've not ever been taught how to. So they really do. I can already think about some kids that will never let you go, where they move and they still need to talk and need to have people. So we'll work with them. I mean, that was one thing out of COVID, is we all got a little more proficient in online stuff. So we're able to do that with them as well.
Very nice, very nice. Now, I know, Brigid, you've done a ton statewide.
I have.
Talk a little bit about your work for this population of kids.
So one thing that's important, especially for the Children's Advocacy Alliance, is we do have programs here and we have resources. We need more, and there are reasons we need more that we can talk about, but statewide, it's very limited. Washoe has a great program called Awaken that I know are very committed advocates that are doing similar work in Washoe County, but the rurals are just vacant of resources, and that is a problem, because it's not like it's not happening in the rurals.
Right.
I think it's a lack of identification, and then a lack of service, a lack of eyes on the children that are trained in knowing how to identify what's going on.
Okay. And you did some work around that, right? Or raising awareness. There's something you were doing.
Well, we are. We all work as part of the statewide coalition for commercial sexual exploitation. So all of us at this table are currently working to figure out how to get prevention efforts out there, treatment, trainings for people that are constantly involved with children, from school teachers to medical professionals and parents, to identify with their own children.
Yeah. Is there someplace people can go to get more information on, like, if someone's listening to this and they are living in Ely and they say, I want to get trained so that I can support the work that's being done in my home community? Is there a place people can go to get information or to learn how to get trained? Or
I would refer them to the Division of Child and Family Services at this time, because they are the ones that oversee the everyday workings of the commercial sexual exploitation commission.
Okay.
So they would be the ones to connect that person into anything that they could do to get training.
Okay. Thanks, Bridget.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that people locally could get involved with either of your organizations? Like, what does it look like to become an advocate? How do you select advocates?
You want to go first?
You could always use my hotline.
Yeah, seriously.
No, go for it.
Oh, okay. So we run an advocate university, and that covers kind of comprehensive advocacy, and it's 50 hours. The cool thing about that is that we do offer it completely online or in person.
Okay.
So if somebody wanted to just learn more about how to become an advocate, they can do that. They can sign up through our website. But also, we are always trying to identify good advocates that either want to volunteer their time or potentially sign up when we have an opening position. And really, we're looking for people who really understand trauma, boundaries, and if they don't understand that, are willing to learn and work with us on those things, and how to work with people and just kind of provide them with care without, I guess, judgment-free care, I guess is the good way to put that.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for people that want to volunteer their time as an advocate, like Makaay said on the hotline. We always will host students, so we'll work with college students if they are looking for a site that they can spend their semester, couple semesters with us, we'll do that.
Awesome.
And the newest thing that we're doing is we're looking for people who have bilingual abilities.
Mhm.
A lot of times we're looking for Spanish, we're looking for Mandarin, Cantonese, Tagalog, Thai, because a lot of times both youth and adults who do not speak English fluently are more at risk for being trafficked by targeted by traffickers. Sorry about that. And we are looking for people who can just volunteer that kind of ability to move those services along.
Okay. Is there a cost for the advocate training?
There is not. So all of that is covered by our agency.
Okay.
It's all free to whoever wants to join.
Okay, so a free 50-hour training for
Mhm.
folks who are interested in being advocates. Specifically, you're looking for folks who are bilingual in a number of different languages.
Well, we're looking for people who would like to be advocates, but
Yes.
also people who...
Oh, separately.
Yeah, so
Oh.
it is two separate tracks.
That's fantastic. That's
yeah.
even more people can get involved.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if somebody says language is my skill set and I don't know about advocacy, but I can provide that
Yeah.
language, then we're like, okay, we'll work with that. And we don't require them to go through 50 hours of training.
Okay.
So
But
it's
that's
less
tremendous
hours.
because
Yeah.
people, can offer linguistic support,
Yeah.
and contribute to improving the life outcomes for these youth by
Oh,
just
yeah.
translating,
Mhm.
so it doesn't have
Definitely.
to be a heavy lift.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what about your program?
You can always
Kai?
use volunteers.
Yeah.
So more of our volunteers, we focus more on the mentoring and prevention side.
Okay.
So our goal with that program is to have as many volunteer mentors as possible so that we have a variety of different personalities, career fields, for those kids who are severely at risk or just starting to get into trouble, to match them up with someone in the community after, of course, a lot of background checks and fingerprints and all of that
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
And similar training, we do 2 full days in person for that program and then additional online training as well. So we want them to be aware of the indicators of abuse, including sexual exploitation, but then also, how to interact with kids and all of those kind of things that you think of as basic, but they're not, because teenagers they're a lot. So we do a lot of training with them. And then we also have the opportunity as well for group facilitators. So individuals who would like to be trained in facilitating our prevention groups. Currently, we do them at our office and then also at the harbour location so that we bring it to the kids. But it is a 12-week and they can stay on for longer where they can go interact with other teams, and it's facilitated by an adult who is well-versed in a lot of different things so that they can have that interaction. Because what we've found, especially on that prevention level, Getting kids engaged with each other is probably the best way for them to start solving the issues that they're going through. Because even I have advocates who are only just 21 and they're old. They're so old, you'll never understand. So it's a, it gives us a little bit more credit if we have them, talking together and figuring out these issues and feeling supported. A lot of the kids that we work with feel really alone. Their whole life is on social media, but when they go to school, it's like, it's the worst stories when we hear about the kids who have to eat by themselves and things like that. It just really breaks my heart. Even with everything else that we work within, but they just feel really alone, which is such a vulnerability for someone who's looking for those kids who feel alone and then offering them, a confidant, but little do they know that it's someone who they shouldn't confide in. So just having that really good group and also having that, especially for female identifying youth, having them see positive female role models and positive female relationships. I mean, we have advocates from Brittany's program come in, we have law enforcement come in, and they see all these people interacting, and it's healthy, which they're not necessarily getting at other places, and especially not at home. So yes, always long answer to that. Always looking for volunteers, and just people who want to help is really important. So.
I want to, if I can throw in, because, as I mentioned earlier, the foster child population, which my unit works with, because they're so at risk, that the court-appointed special advocate program, the CASA program, would also be a great way to try to prevent them from making it too far down. Just having that mentoring connection, somebody who's there to care about them, or really any other mentoring program early on.
What does it look like to get involved with CASA? Where can folks go to learn more about getting involved with CASA?
So that they would have a website where you could look up. It is a training right now. I still believe they are doing it online, and not in person. It's extensive background checks.
Yeah.
But I don't know the length of time that their training is anymore. It used to be a long training, but I think they've shortened it. Okay.
So another opportunity for folks to get involved and to, be hands-on and support these youth. What are some other just global things? There's somebody right now who's sitting on the 15, about to get on the 95, and they want to know, why does this matter? Like, why is it important that we have these organizations and we're doing this work to support these children?
Well, I don't think that anybody could possibly believe that a 12-year-old is willingly wanting to have sex with a 50-year-old man for money.
Yeah.
So is it important? It's extremely important, because these children are being sexually assaulted on a repeated basis, and somebody's profiting off of them. And it is a huge profit. I mean, our kids are just being sold and broken. The trauma, and you know better than I do, I see it from a different perspective, because I see the repeat, like, the cycle and the in and the out. But our children are being broken, and it is tough. And we before cameras started rolling, we had said, like, oh, nobody wants to hear about this. I mean, what they do every day, what my staff do every day, it is difficult for the public to really want to know what's happening, to open their eyes to understand it is happening in our backyard, and hopefully deciding that they need to do something to make it stop.
Yeah.
Because it's children, like, some of our children that are being involved are not maybe who you think they would be. Some of them are honor roll students. Some of them are athletes. Some of them are, and they just get caught up in this spiral of being lonely and being vulnerable. And somebody just says the right thing at the right time and makes them feel like they're okay and that this person cares for them. And so that's what I want people on the 95 and the 15 thinking about right now.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. Please join us for part 2 of our conversation about commercial sexual exploitation of children, and learn more about how you can become an involved Nevadan, changing and improving the lives of our youth.